Everybody keeps asking about One Life, One Chance podcast merchandise. I finally released t-shirts and crewneck sweatshirts. You can go to www.h2omerch.com and you can pre-order right now. It's a worldwide international shipping. Sizes small to 5X. If you really want to support the podcast, this is the best direct way to do so. So I appreciate that very much. You can pick up that merch today. Thank you.
Over the years, I've learned how to use a version of self-compression on my own voice.
For real?
No, I'm just kidding.
It sounds good, though. Welcome to the One Life, One Chance podcast. I'm your host, Toby Morse. Today, I have a very, very special guest. Came straight here from his house. I appreciate that. Mr. Trever Keith, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
This is awesome to have you here. I usually don't really date these things because I don't know when they're going to come out, but this should come out soon. But today is election day. So it makes me happy that you're here because I don't want to watch TV or look at anything political today, and maybe look at it tomorrow. We'll see what happens.
Me neither. And actually, I think it was strategic that I managed to brave the freeways between Vegas and Los Angeles before there was any rioting or scary blockades of four-wheel drive vehicles and Trump flags, or whatever side you're on. I managed to avoid any of that drama for today. So I made it
straight from Vegas to my house. I appreciate that very much.
Yeah.
We have a lot to talk about. I have a lot of my notes. This is, if you're not familiar with the podcast, I like to get thorough about what inspired you, which now inspires me and a lot of people in the world through your music and everything you've done. So we're going to take you back. You were born and raised in Victorville, California?
I was actually, my formative years were spent in Victorville. I was born in Encino, California.
Oh, shit, okay.
And
is that a movie?
Encino Man.
Yeah, there we go.
With Pauly Shore.
Yes.
It's in the Valley. Both of my parents are native Californians, and they're my grandparents on each side of my family. So we go back in that kind of lineage there.
Yeah.
Of when it was like orange groves and all that good stuff here. And I grew up in the Valley, more or less.
Yeah.
But by the time I was around 7 or 8 years old, we did move to Victorville, and I spent all of my childhood and my teens.
Where is that? Where
some
is
of my
Victorville?
20s.
I heard of it, but not really sure what it is.
Well, if you're
compared to now, Hollywood, California.
So if you're leaving Hollywood and you're heading to Vegas.
Oh, okay.
Just before you get to Barstow on the 15,
okay,
is Victorville.
So I've driven by that a million times, probably.
You've taken a leak there before, right?
For sure.
I can guarantee it.
And do you have any brothers and sisters?
I do. I have a younger brother and an even younger sister, so I'm the oldest of 3.
Oldest of 3. And how are your parents growing up? Are you guys a religious family? You have strict parents?
Interestingly enough, my parents, they married young. They had children young, and they're both still together.
That's fucking awesome.
I'm 51. They got married a year before I was born, so they've been married 52 years.
Wow, man, that's inspiring, man.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
And they were and still are fantastic parents. They, my mom, by choice, never worked when we were kids. Made sure she took care of us.
It's awesome.
My dad would sometimes work 2 and 3 jobs to make ends meet. And I guess that, by most standards, not even just today, but even several decades ago, is old fashioned.
Yeah, totally.
But that was the choice they made, and the way that they wanted to,
and it worked.
To do it with their family. And so we were very well cared for. We weren't latchkey kids or anything like that.
Were they strict at all, or?
I would say somewhat, yeah. They really didn't grow up with, or we didn't grow up with a lot of religion in the home. But it wasn't until we moved to Victorville or Hesperia, so their cities are right next to each other. I use them synonymously.
Yeah.
The kids, my brother and I, we got picked up by a Sunday school bus that used to come through our neighborhood.
Okay.
And we always wanted to go because we were curious about it.
Mm-hmm.
So we jumped on and started going to church. And we immediately got indoctrinated into thinking we were going to burn in hell, and we were terrified. And because we loved our parents, we didn't want them to burn in hell.
Holy crap. That was your choice to try out church and go do that?
Well, we just wondered what the deal with this bus was.
Okay.
Some of our other friends in the neighborhoods were jumping on it, and they were like, oh, where are they going? They're going to Sunday school. Let's try it out.
Yeah.
I mean, we're like 8, 9, 10 years old.
Yeah, but still.
And back in those days, my parents were like, where are you going, church? That's probably safe. Go for it. Which I guess is a little. We would never do that as parents now.
No. How long did that last for, going to church?
Well, what it did was it got my parents into church ultimately,
wow.
and they've found a lot of comfort and use for their faith and their beliefs, and they still are very much into that
now.
And that's
well, you
that's
guys
cool.
Inspired that, which is kind of opposite usually how it
Which
goes.
is so weird too, because as an adult, I've I kind of realized that it really wasn't for me.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So they gained religion and I lost mine as an adult.
So how were you in school? Like, how was it growing up in school? Were you a good student?
I was a total goody overachiever. Really? Yeah.
Straight A's and stuff?
When I found out that there was something called the straight edge movement, I was like, oh, now I finally get to be cool. Because that was just something I never smoked. I've still never smoked a cigarette.
Are you fucking serious?
I never smoked a joint, weed. I mean, I've taken pills.
I never knew this, man. This is
because
awesome.
I needed to when I was sick or went to the hospital or whatever. It wasn't until probably I got into my 30s that I started. I mean, I tried booze a few times when I was younger.
Yeah.
But I became more of a little bit of a late in life appreciator of booze. So I'm not a complete teetotaler. I like wine and beer and bourbon.
Yeah. Wow, I never knew you straight edge. That's amazing.
But yeah, when I was a kid, I was like full on straight edge.
Wow.
Not
even really knowing it. Probably you say you're like a goody two shoes.
I didn't even know it was a movement.
Yeah.
And like I said, when I found out it was something that people did and it made them cool and it was a way to identify in a peer group, especially when you're a teenager.
Yeah.
I was like, yes, please. Yes, that's me.
So in high school, you did nothing.
No, I was I was considered a nerd by most people, I guess.
Yeah.
Although I discovered music really young and I knew I wanted to play music. So I guess I was a little bit of a, what do you call it? A contradiction of what most people think that should be. Mm-hmm. And being a bit isolated, growing up outside of LA or Orange County or any of those areas, and obviously this was pre-internet when I was a kid, we didn't have the same kinds of connections. So we just kind of went with whatever our local vibe was. And it was stunted. Everything came like way later where I lived, all the movements and trends and everything.
Yeah.
So it was kind of still like metal vibe out there. And
how old were you then? Like what year would this be? Not a year, like student-wise,
15, maybe, early high school. Mm-hmm. When I was in junior high, when the Journey Escape record came out, I decided I loved music, and that just like sucked me into it. That
was like your first record kind of thing?
Yeah. The Journey Escape
band.
thing like got me obsessed with music and playing music. So I started taking piano lessons, and I had a keyboard at home, and
that's awesome.
Then I kind of tried. My brother had a guitar, and I played around on his a little bit and realized it was really difficult. I didn't like it very much, so I kind of threw the guitar aside. But we put a band together when I was probably 14 or 15, and I was just the singer, and then I had a keyboard. So the 80s were starting to kick in, so we had like Duran Duran and stuff like that. So we had a cover band that would play our friends' parties in late junior high, early high school.
Was that Zero Tolerance?
No, God, what were we called? We were called Exodus. Okay. Which is just weird because that's the name of like a full-on,
reggae?
A hard metal band.
Oh,
it might be a reggae thing,
it's a Bob
too.
Marley record, my bad. Yeah.
Anyway.
Exodus back then, you're right.
But strangely biblical and like way too heavy-handed for like a band of teenagers playing pop covers. It's kind of silly. But we did like Duran Duran, and then we would do a Journey song, and then we would do a Van Halen song. And
it's cool.
So we were kind of all over the map. And then as I got older, I got a little bit more focused onto like metal, and I really got into like Iron Maiden and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And
what were your goals in high school?
My goals in high school were just mainly to do well, but
was it to please your parents, get grades, or you actually love school?
A little bit of both.
Yeah.
My personality is I'm a pleaser. I want people to like me.
Okay.
It's probably why I went into music.
Yeah.
But which is a total another contradiction, because anytime you put yourself out there creatively, you're opening yourself up for people to 100%. Criticize the hell out of you and 100%. Hate you. But if you just get a few people to like you, then it kind of satisfies that weird pleaser.
No, for sure,
thing.
for sure.
So anyway,
so school, did you?
so school, I did well in school, number one for me, because it made me feel good about myself.
Yeah.
I knew it made my parents happy, but also I liked learning, certain subjects at least.
Yeah.
It's funny. I think when we go to school and we're young, a lot of that time ends up being wasted because you're not really interested in a lot of the subjects you take.
Not.
And then you find out later in life, like, oh man, I really wished I would have learned more about history or aspects of history, periods and things that, just as an example. So, I did that, but when I was 14 or 15 and I started playing music and I was in a band, a light went off with me, or a switch went off, and I was like, I'm doing this. So I kind of knew right at that time period, I want to play music for my career.
Wow.
And
awesome.
And I was focused. I was extremely focused on that and tried to do anything I could figure out that I could do to make that happen.
Yeah. Were your parents supportive of it too?
Very, very much so. My dad is a musician and was a musician throughout my entire childhood. I remember, of course he worked, regular 40-hour week jobs during the day, but then, Thursday through Sunday for most of my childhood, he played in bars at night.
Wow.
So I remember
he play guitar?
He plays bass.
Okay.
And his strongest suit is singing. He's a really, really great singer.
That's fucking cool.
But he plays bass, he plays guitar, he plays drums. He can do a little bit of all of it. Anyway, so some of my earliest memories of waking up Saturday morning, putting on Saturday morning cartoons, eating some cereal, is seeing that guitar case or bass case, in the living room, because that was just a staple.
Yeah. That's
so
cool.
I grew up around that, and anyway, I was just focused on that, and it was for whatever it was, narrow-minded or whatever. I think it did two things. It helped me. I was very motivated to achieve some level of, I wouldn't even call it success, but at least getting to a point where I could do it. And I made it a reality on some level. Yeah. But at the same time, I was not focused on anything other than that. So I didn't care about going to college I
was going to ask you that.
Or doing anything else besides.
So you graduated though?
I did graduate high school. I graduated on the honor roll.
Damn.
With probably like a B+ average or something.
But still,
it wasn't amazing. I was no valedictorian.
A lot of people from our world, I know from this podcast, nobody really graduates in our world. So that's
true.
Good to hear. It's good.
That's true. And honestly, I probably should have had a little more of a focus on furthering my education. Going into higher education. But I went from that immediately into working construction jobs or whatever I had to do to make money, and focused 100% on the band. So in my 20s, by this time, I moved out when I was 18 or 19. My wife and I knew each other, and then we ended up getting married not too much longer after that. We were both younger than 20 when we got married. I think I was 19, she was 18. But we
following your parents' footsteps, you get a long marriage.
I did,
awesome,
and I think it's interesting. We are still married,
I know,
and
awesome.
happily.
Yeah, that's so cool. I'm saying that's awesome.
Yeah, and you just saw we were just together on tour only a year ago.
Yeah, dude. I love that.
So that's been great. One thing I tried to do different from my parents, though, because I wanted this to work differently for me. I was always told that my dad would have done more with music had he not had kids early, and he did the responsible thing by going to work and taking care of the family, which 100%
putting that to the side,
that he did. So I kind of grew up with this weird thing of like, if I'm going to do music, I cannot have kids,
Okay.
But my wife was very, very supportive and super cool about it, and always has been. So she's like, do that tour, go do whatever you want to make this work.
Yeah. Awesome.
And we waited, and we still had kids sort of young by what a lot of people's standards might be. I kind of wanted to wait till I was 30, but
I was 33.
In my late 20s, we had a surprise.
Okay.
So around 27, my son was born, and then my daughter came 4 years later.
Yeah, that's amazing. So what band you in when you graduated from high school? Have you already started a band?
So we did have a band called Victoria Manor. I think you mentioned that earlier.
Yep.
That was my later high school band.
87.
And we wanted to be... we wanted to be like this cross between Iron Maiden but I liked Queensryche a lot.
Okay.
And I never had a voice as high as Jeff Tate, but I really wanted to imitate that warble and high.
A sick voice.
So silly. I mean, for people that are fans of that, you can, you're probably like, oh yeah, that's awesome. But for it's something that didn't age well. You know what I mean? Whereas strangely, Iron Maiden did.
They did.
But that whole brand of like Queensryche, operatic, high-pitched warbling stuff just didn't. Even though Bruce from
he kills it, does.
Iron Maiden, he still has the warbly
he does.
high thing.
It's just different though. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
They're different.
Yeah.
Somehow they managed to survive the trappings of those decades.
Yeah.
And because they've been an enduring band and managed to keep a following, they surpassed whatever fashions or fads there were in those decades.
Was it called hair metal?
I guess, yeah. I mean, a lot of what was going on in the 80s, I think, is just like ass rock, like spandex, teased hair, all that nonsense.
Victoria Manor had a 3-song demo that was never released or something. You guys made a demo or something?
Yeah, dude, you've done a little research.
Yeah, was that ever going to come out? That'd be kind of sick.
Actually, we did make one.
Yeah, but it never came out.
No, we pressed it.
Okay.
We were full DIY, even though we weren't punk rock. We were metal. We pulled our money together, and we, being not too far from LA, found a company that cassette tapes were kind of this is pre-CD.
Yeah.
So we made a bunch of cassette tapes. I can't remember how many, probably 300.
Yeah.
And we sold a few, but we tried really just to give them away more than anything.
Promotion, yeah.
And they have some very, very heady songs on them, like The Tempting and A Fallen Honor and stuff like that. It was very, what do you call it? I can't think of the word. Kind of just, silly and way too serious.
Yeah.
So this was kind of in the formative time of really developing like what is your voice.
Yeah.
And right alongside the metal stuff, which was really popular where I was growing up and part of the culture. I also had access to, and this is pre-MTV.
Okay.
There was a show called MV3 that was I don't know if it was local or maybe it was a network thing. Did you have it where you grew up?
No, I didn't have that, no.
So I think it was more of a West Coast thing. Yeah. And Richard Blade, who's a real
Was it music video station?
It was like Music Video 3 or something.
Okay.
It aired on Channel 9 here, I think, in LA. And they started playing music videos, and bands that were making music videos back then was like the new wave and post punk and stuff like that. So I was obsessed with like Billy Idol's White Wedding video. I thought that was the coolest stuff ever. But then I discovered Duran Duran and God, like Toto Coelho, I Eat Cannibal and all that kind of cool, weird proto punk, new wave kind of stuff. And I loved it. I liked that a lot too.
Yeah.
So at some point I started getting a bit burned on the metal, and this is Matt and I, our original bass player, Matt Riddle. We were buddies in high school when we put Victoria Manor together.
Yeah.
And our bass player our guitar player and drummer, they were brothers, and they were moving on and left the band. So Matt and I were kind of hanging out going, what are we going to do? Let's do something different, like the metal stuff's fun, but what if we did something that was more like The Alarm or The Cure or Psychedelic Furs or The Smiths?
Yeah.
So we started writing songs that weren't in a minor key.
Okay.
Pop songs that were around a major key, where maybe if you're writing music, you're in the major, you'd like say you're in the key C, you go C, F, G, and then you go to the A minor, but that's going to be your pre-chorus, your bridge. It's not going to be the thing the whole song centered around.
Yeah.
And we made a crop of songs like that. We came up with another really terrible bad name for our band. We called ourselves Zero Tolerance.
Yeah. And there's a hardcore band from Buffalo.
Which we had no idea,
and that's
because
my original bass player came from that band. It was crazy when I found out.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh, I never knew that.
Yeah, Zero Tolerance was a hardcore band.
Oh, that's rad.
But you were a new wave band, yeah.
Well, what's silly about that again is like we had the worst ability for picking names because we wanted to, it seemed like we were gravitating toward these names that were really serious. You know what I mean? Zero Tolerance is a great hardcore band name.
Great.
Terrible like new wave band name. Right?
It's pretty hard name to think about it as Zero Tolerance.
So this is still, pre-internet and everything's.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, we were touring as Face to Face pre-internet.
Yeah.
In the days when you would travel the country and there really were scenes.
Yeah.
There was because it was about the local community, and the local, culture of what was going on. So we had no idea there was another Zero Tolerance. It was almost like you could pick any name and someone else had it somewhere.
Totally. No internet shit.
So we played like a party. I think we did a Plimsolls cover and a Misfits cover, and we were a little bit all over the map. We played our originals, and it was really fun. And we just decided that it was a little too light, and we wanted to make it a little bit more aggressive.
Okay.
And that's sort of how Face to Face began.
It was born, yeah.
So we kept some of those original demos, we kept them. But instead of me playing like an acoustic guitar and maybe hitting a little synthesizer, I got rid of the keyboard, I got rid of the acoustic guitar, and I bought a Telecaster.
Sick.
I put a Seymour Duncan hot rail in it, and I got a Marshall half stack. I was like, now I'm going to play guitar.
That's cool.
I
Self-taught too, right?
I took up guitar at like age 20.
Wow.
I never really played guitar
That's
before.
freaking cool.
It's cool, but I mean, I am a self-taught guitar player, so my technique is my own.
Yeah, but it works. I mean, obviously it works.
It works.
So that would be real quick to rewind for a second. So you're starting to get into punk rock then. So it all comes. You said you covered the Misfits song. Come on, the Misfits. So you're getting into punk rock, getting new wave at the same time.
Yeah, and in the meantime, like, a buddy of ours, of Matt and mine, is like, "Oh, dude, have you heard the new like Bad Religion record?" And I'm like, "No, what's that?" And it was No Control at the time had come out, and I was like, "Holy shit, this is punk rock!" Like
with melody and all that.
I'd never been introduced to that. Yeah, I was
Okay.
like, these are just fast, like really good pop songs, and whatever Ramones I'd heard, because everyone was exposed to Ramones at some point, right?
Yeah, totally.
In my age group. How far apart are we?
I'm 50. I'm 50.
Oh, dude. Okay, so we're right there.
Okay.
Even if you didn't grow up with like punk rock on your doorstep, you knew the Ramones. Of
course.
And I thought the Ramones were cool.
Yeah. Great melodies.
But nothing like what Bad Religion was. That opened up a whole new thing to me. I was like, whoa, okay, this exists. I like this a lot. This is rad. And then Fugazi. It's funny you're wearing the shirt.
Yeah.
He's like, oh yeah, dude, check out this. I don't know if Repeater was out yet or if it was still Two Things at Once that I heard first, which was combining the two EPs. And
12 songs or something, 13 songs.
That's it. That's it.
Songs,
I said Two Things at Once. That's Descendants.
That's Descendants. We're getting to Descendants.
I was getting to the Descendants because that's my other. Like, I have this trifecta of bands that really made me go, wait a minute. There's something cool about punk rock.
Yeah.
It's Bad Religion, Descendants, and Fugazi. That's what did it. That's what did it for me.
Okay. It's a great
trifecta. Now, Fugazi didn't really have the same melody. They did it in a different way, but Fugazi was like the part of that attracted me to punk rock that was all heart.
Totally.
You know what I mean? Because
not just a certain sound.
Exactly. And you could hear what those guys did, and there's talent and ability there, but what they lacked in ability, they made up for, by leaps and bounds with heart.
Yeah, man.
And it was that energy and just the delivery of how that stuff came, particularly Ian MacKaye,
Yeah, man.
So now I kind of had these things that balanced out my love of like the 80s pop of The Cure and the Smiths with a little more heavy stuff, which was more appealing to me as a 20-something.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And so we just kind of started molding our songs to, I mean, what does anyone do when they start a band or start writing songs? You want to write the kind of stuff that you love to hear.
Yeah, yeah.
You write what you want to hear, but you're kind of also just regurgitating the stuff that you love.
Like. Yeah, 100%, man. It's so true.
And so that's kind of really where Face to Face came from. And when we got that lineup of me and Matt and Rob, the original three-piece, we just started playing. So I was working construction. Matt was working construction. Rob was working construction.
How old were you then? It was 91, right?
Yeah, I was 22.
Okay.
In 91. I turned 22 in May of 91.
Yeah.
But, from like 19 to that 21 point is kind of this weird time where we're were sort of trying to find what it was we were. And when we finally defined it as Face to Face, and we had that first batch of songs that would end up becoming Don't Turn Away.
Yeah.
That was really where we were like, okay, now we know what we want to do. And at least we had a jumping off point.
Yeah.
For the future.
And where'd the name come from?
The name came from, which actually it's also a little bit, maybe that could be a hardcore band name too, right? It totally could.
Yeah, totally.
Of course, we were completely unaware there was a Boston pop band called Face to Face.
Sure, I know that.
That had a brief career in the 80s, yes, fronted by Laurie Sargent. You can look that up on Wikipedia. That I guess had a record deal on a major label and made music videos and all that kind of stuff.
Face to Face, yeah, it's super hardcore.
we were sitting around a table. I remember this. Rob's friend at the time, Mark Hakey, was our other guitar player.
Okay.
Rob was ex-Air Force, and he had just gotten out. There's a base in Victorville, so he was stationed there.
Okay, perfect.
So he got stationed there, and then he was out, and he just moved into the city. But a buddy of his who was still in the Air Force was a guitar player, and he's like, "Hey, my buddy wants to come over and jam with us. Let's see if it's a fit." And that was Mark Hakey, and he was rad. We got along as friends, and we played music together and wrote, a few things here and there. He actually ended up writing, he has a co-write credit for the song Velocity, because he had something to do with that, even though we wouldn't record it until later on Big Choice.
Yeah.
And then since he was still active military, he got called to Desert Storm.
Dang.
So we just started playing as a 3-piece. Okay. And then when he got back, it was kind of like, we're kind of doing this 3-piece thing, dude. Like,
wow,
it's working better for us.
Yeah.
Oh man, maybe not even as much as a year.
Was he bummed when he got back?
I mean, he came back and we played together still.
Okay.
Initially.
Yeah.
It wasn't like he showed back up and we had his amp and guitar out front going.
No.
Hey man, there's your stuff.
But it was working.
But yeah, we'd already kind of bonded and we really liked how it was going as a 3-piece. And when he came back, it was kind of like, the kind of thing that didn't really fit too well. So we parted ways and just kept it lean and mean as a 3-piece.
Yeah, and how those first shows as you became Face to Face, like started playing shows around locally and stuff, getting a name for yourself?
Yeah, so being from Victorville, there was nowhere to play there, obviously. The closest gigs for us were probably about a 30-40 minute ride to like San Bernardino, Riverside. We go to Riverside a lot. There was a venue there called Spanky's.
Yeah, Spanky. Yes.
That's where we did some
legendary.
It's where we did some of our first shows.
Okay.
And we played there a lot.
Okay.
And then
that's
there'd
like
be
the CBGBs
of Riverside.
For sure.
It totally was. And the rad thing about Spanky's is it became the Showcase Theater later.
Yeah, great
but
spot.
The early days it was called Spanky's. One of the first shows we ever did, I didn't know how to do any of this business stuff, right? I'm just some dumb kid from the desert. So we made a demo, and I called the owner of the club, and he also was the guy who booked it. His name is Izat Solomon. And I said, I'd like to take a meeting with you because my band would like to play at your venue. And
a meeting.
He's like, okay. So cool. I drove down and met with him, and I gave him my tape in person. And I was like, we'd love to play anytime. We don't want any money. We just want to play for people, whatever. And he's like, okay, yeah, it's really cool. And so he called me a week later and he goes, I have some bands coming through on a tour. It's Jawbox and some other band that was playing. And I think it was when they were doing For Your Own Special Sweetheart tour.
Okay.
And that was our first gig at Spanky's.
Damn, that's
opening
cool.
Like a good national tour.
That's awesome.
And I didn't even realize how significant that was at the time. But it was pretty rad.
Yeah, it's really cool for your first show.
So we played there quite a bit because Izat was very cool guy, and he gave us a lot of opportunities there. And then, we'd get the odd college gig.
Yeah.
There was some in San Bernardino. We used to play the Barn in Riverside.
That's great,
here and
man.
there.
Bill Fold used to put those shows on.
Yeah. I met Bill in the very early days. He was
awesome.
like
Great
another
dude.
one of those guys early on that I took a meeting with, and Matt and I together.
That's cool.
And gave him the cassette, and so he.
I like how professional you guys were.
We were trying.
Yeah, man, but it worked. I mean, shit.
It did, because I guess that personal touch, maybe.
Yeah.
We played the Scream. We played the Green Door. We played, that was in Ontario. There was a place called Munchies in Pomona that we played a bunch. And then
played the circuit.
I met Ren, who used to book the Anti-Club here in Hollywood.
Okay.
And she was really, really super nice and liked the band. And she would book us like a lot at Anti-Club. And for us, anytime we played Hollywood, we're like, oh shit, dude, yeah, this is the big time. This is going to be the good market right here.
Yeah.
And it would always be like on a Wednesday night for like 8 people or something. You know what I mean? But our bigger crowds were happening in Inland Empire.
Okay.
So
yeah,
it's funny how that works. But that started to build the biggest first. Inland Empire, Orange County.
Yeah.
And then in LA was always the harder nut to crack.
To break, yeah. For us too, for sure.
Finally did happen after a while.
Try being East Coast band coming here too. It was super hard.
Oh, I can imagine.
To come play out here.
And then we weren't even a band for. I mean, we formed in 91, and I think by 92 we had already released Don't Turn Away on Dr. Strange Records.
With Disconnected on it as well.
Yeah, so things happened pretty quick for us. It was
Walk Away was a great song too on there.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah. It was amazing because I actually called this venue called The Scream
for a meeting,
looking for a show.
Yeah.
And
so good.
And they're like, well, I think I had something booked with them. And I called to confirm it, and they said, hey, there's just going to be this other thing happening. Sorry, we double booked you. It's a night of Dr. Strange Records bands. And I was like, what's that? And the guy's like, I don't know. Maybe you can jump on the show. Why don't you just call the guy that booked it? Maybe he'll just let you jump on as an opener. I was like, all right, cool. So I call and get Bill Plaster of Dr. Strange Records.
Wow, man.
And I tell him what I want to do. And he's like, yeah, dude. Yeah, cool. Jump on. All good. So, and then the show ended up getting canceled or something.
Shit.
But I stayed in touch with Bill. And I was like, hey, we worked on a bunch of songs. I know you got this record label. Would you ever want to come see our band play?
Yeah.
And so we set up a show at the Green Door, which is in Ontario. And Bill came out to that and watched the band. And right after our set, he was like, do you guys want to make a record with my label?
That's
we
awesome,
were like,
man.
yes, we do.
That's so cool, man.
Yeah. So it came together. It came together really, really quickly. And it was a real good thing. He got us into West Beach.
Yeah.
We were only there for 2 weekends, and we made the entire record in 2 weekends.
Was that Gerwitz's spot?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. And his partner, Don Cameron, was the engineer that recorded and mixed our first record.
In the 90s too. Yeah. West Beach.
Yeah. It was a cool studio. Yeah, I love that place. I actually ended up doing a bunch of stuff there at different times.
Yeah. So Don't Turn Away comes out, and how is that? Like, you established, a record out?
Well, actually, that's a little. I don't want to turn this into like a 3-hour conversation.
Don't worry about it. People want to hear it. You're here.
So that was a little more to it than that. We did the 2 weekends, got the record done and mixed, and then we kept playing shows. And we did a show at the Roxy. And after we were done, I met this guy, Jim Goodwin, who came up to me and said, "Hey, I really like the band. I'm an engineer at such and such studio, and I'm trying to make my bones there. And they told me whenever I want, I can bring bands in on off hours and record their stuff. Gotcha. So would you like to come in and record for free?" And I was like, Dang. What? That can't be right. Yeah. He's like, yeah, dude. And I'm like, okay, for free. What you got to want something like, what do you want us to sign? Or he's like, I want nothing. I just want to be able to put my name on something.
That's
I think
awesome.
Your songs are good, and I'd like to be associated with this to help my own career.
Wow.
So come to find out, it was this studio called Sound Castle in Silver Lake.
Okay.
Owned by Keith Sweat, the R&B musician.
Yeah, I like Keith Sweat.
and dude, it was nice. So we drove into this place, and it was a big gated facility. It had basketball courts. It had 3 or 4 different rooms.
Huge, man. Yeah.
And we're like, wait a minute, we don't belong. How do we? I felt like we were going to get kicked out at any moment.
Yeah.
But so during the time we'd finished that original West Beach session, and when the Jim Goodwin thing happened, we'd already written like 4 or 5 more songs.
Okay.
So we're like, why don't we do this? We love what we did, but we'll go and record these 4 or 5 more songs and see what happens.
Okay.
So the new songs, I'm going to forget some of these. One of them was Disconnected.
Okay.
It wasn't part of that original crop of Don't Turn Away. That was part of the new 5 that we did with Jim.
Okay.
And I don't know, some of the other, probably Walk Away or, one of the others.
Wow.
A few of the others. So we recorded new stuff with Jim. he took the multi-tracks that Don had recorded, and then we compiled a new album based on the new tracks with Jim, the old tracks with Don, and then he mixed everything.
Okay.
Of course, Bill at Dr. Strange was kind of like just going, Jesus, guys, make this process more complicated. Why don't you? Like, you know, we already had a finished record, and now you're like throwing this wrench in the works. But what ended up coming out of it was I think a really strong debut album because we had the time to like write this huge batch of songs, and it allowed us to kick a few out and favor the stronger ones or whatever. Yeah. So that's what came out on Dr. Strange. Okay. And then we just kind of went about our business. Like, I think we got lucky and maybe got a show in Phoenix.
You do like a big tour and
so
nothing?
we're like, oh wow, we're doing shows out of state.
Yeah.
We would go to San Francisco, play the Bay Area a bunch. Yeah. We would go down to San Diego. We were kind of expanding our circle, but not quite like going on tour. Yeah. I think we'd done like a show in Reno and a show in Tahoe and then some Bay Area stuff and Santa Barbara and
so no East
San
Coast
Diego.
Yet, nothing like that.
We hadn't really toured up until this point.
Yeah.
Then so then how did this come about? Somehow we landed on a show with NoFX in Salt Lake City.
Yeah, nice.
I know how it happened. Carl from Ill Repute. You know
Great
Carl?
band.
You know Carl from Ill Repute?
No, I know the band. Though.
Oh, okay.
The band.
So the drummer Carl, we were going to be doing a show with Ill Repute, either somewhere in the Ventura area. And Carl's like, dude, stay at my house while you guys are up here. And we're like, all right, awesome. So we stay at his place. While we're there, Tim from the band The Grimm, who was working with NoFX at the time, he was part of their road crew. He was staying at Carl's house. So we all hung out and talked and whatever for the night. And Tim was like, dude, you know, I was telling him what I wanted to do with the band. You know, I was very, very forward thinking. I was always working it, you know. And Tim's like,
I like that.
Well, dude, Mike just started this label called Fat Records. You should talk to him about it. This band that, you know, NoFX that I'm working with and whatever.
Wow.
He's like, as a matter of fact, I'm going to talk to Mike about getting you guys on a show. And so I think they were on tour. It might not have been. Yeah. But one of the closest dates they were doing that we could jump on was a Salt Lake City show. So we drove from Victorville to Salt Lake for one show. And this was so ghetto, man, because we had no money. And
I'm sure
Rob had it. We all kind of had these little pickup trucks, the little mini kind. And to haul our gear around, you know, every musician has a truck or a station wagon or something to haul their gear especially when you're young.
Back then, yeah.
So in order to keep our costs down, Rob had this Ford Ranger pickup that kind of had the short extra cab. It didn't have full seats, but had the little jump seats.
Gotcha.
We loaded all the gear into his thing, and then two guys got to ride in the full seats, and then one guy had to like crouch down behind in the jump all the way to Salt Lake.
Dang.
So
that's a long drive. It's like 10 hours at least, right?
At least.
Okay.
So we drove all the way up there, and we played the show with NoFX, and it was awesome. It was at some people who are older that might be from Salt Lake might remember this venue. It was a venue that was in an old church.
Okay.
And it had a gigantic stained glass window. It was like behind the back of the stage.
Okay.
That's what I remember about it. It was really, really cool.
That's
One
awesome.
of the bigger crowds we'd ever played to. We'd never even been to Salt Lake before.
That's a great first show there.
So yeah, so that was a great one. And we met Mike and the guys in NoFX. And then, you know, one thing led to another. And before we knew it, Mike was like, well, if you want to re-release the Don't Turn Away record on Fat, I'll just call Bill and work something out. So I called Bill and I said, yo, dude, you're awesome. Thank you so much for everything you've done for us. But, you know, the whole reason I was looking is because while we were out doing our thing and the record was out, people were constantly coming up to me going, I can't buy your record.
It's frustrating.
I really want to buy your record, but it doesn't exist. You're like, where is it?
That's frustrating.
And so I was like, we got to do something. So Bill really didn't want us to jump, obviously. He liked the band. He was invested in it, and it was all good. But I was like, if Mike can make you an offer that is fair on any level that you're happy with, would you please let us go to this bigger label? Because it also brought the promise of being part of a network of more bands, getting tours offered to us. You know, it was a light year jump into something bigger than just our little world.
Did you have a booking agent then?
Oh God, no.
All right, so that's another level.
Yeah, it was
for
me.
that.
I was our booking agent. Taking meetings with people and,
No, I love it. So, but if you go to that level of Fat Records, maybe there's, people connected to that. I can find booking agents.
Yeah.
Next level.
So Bill did come to an agreement with Mike. Mike gave Bill a buyout for Don't Turn Away.
Wow.
We re-released it on Fat, and Fat went, "You're going on tour." And we were like, hell yeah.
Wow, man.
We were stoked. So the first tour we did was with Lagwagon in Europe, and they had already been a bunch of times.
That's a great
supporting
first tour too.
NoFX. This was like 93, I think.
Great, man.
And so I think it was Lagwagon's, correct me if I'm wrong, it might have been the first time they tried their own headline tour in Europe, because they were
big over there, man.
They'd been making their bones supporting NoFX.
I've seen them over there.
So then we jumped on as a support act, and it was awesome. I mean, most of the shows were really good size. There were a couple stinkers here and there.
NoFX headline?
No NoFX. It was Lagwagon and us only. So that was a good one.
It's a great first European tour.
And then when we got home, NoFX offered us a tour, which is essentially a Canadian tour, but it had dates in Portland, Seattle, and then Vancouver across to Winnipeg, and then dates in the Midwest, and then dates in Toronto and Montreal.
Perfect.
And then a couple on the way back.
So
we got a good mix of some U.S. markets, mostly Canadian, and it was just such a boost.
Yeah,
it was a massive boost.
And did you feel a different push and reception for Don't Turn Away the second time it was released? Was it like a brand new record again, kind of?
I don't know if I ever looked at it that way. It always kind of felt like this upward arc the whole time we were working on it. But people stopped complaining about not being able to find it.
Yeah, that too. And you get in front of different audiences, touring different bands. And
well, now when we're on a tour, we had boxes and boxes of CDs we could sell at the merch table. So if you were there to see NoFX and you never heard of us and you liked what you saw when we played, you were right over there buying a CD.
Yeah, it's perfect, man.
And that's what you want, as a band. Back then, we're talking as old timers. Nowadays, people are like, "Oh, I heard this band for 15 seconds, and then I looked for them on Spotify, and I listened to part of their song, and then I got bored and did something else."
But back then, the labels would give you that stuff you could sell and keep the cash. You make your money off those CDs. That's how you survived on tour, merching the CDs.
Exactly.
So it was like an advance or something.
So then we were at a point where we could start kind of stepping out on our own, and we booked a tour that was just our own tour from.
You booking it?
No. Now we had Mike Kelly through Fat Records, who was their agent.
Another opportunity. That's great.
Yes, exactly. It helped us step up a little bit.
Yeah.
And Mike booked us a tour from Los Angeles to Florida. And then so we basically played shows all the way out to Florida and then just deadheaded straight back.
Yeah.
But dude, that was so good for us and so eye-opening. It was a lot of small clubs, but we played the Hardback in Gainesville, which is one of my standout nights that I remember. Because so many people filled in. It was a tiny little room. There wasn't a stage.
Yeah.
You just set up in the corner. But I hadn't done a show with so many people in it and just have it just be so frantic and crazy and just filled with people. And, it was nuts.
That's a great feeling, right?
It was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Especially in Florida, like first time really headlining there.
It just felt, we'd been to Europe and lots of places in Canada, but that felt like, wow, now we're really doing all these like U.S. markets we hadn't been into before. And that started feeling a lot more legit.
Yeah, were you feeling at that point like this is something, obviously you want to do for your career, but you feel like we had a feeling that face-to-face could be, this is going to be your full-time.
Yeah, exactly. There wasn't really, since Don't Turn Away was a buyout of a previous record that we'd released, I don't think at that point we were really getting tour support or anything. So it was like, okay, if we're going to take off our jobs for X amount of time, how much do you think we could make maybe selling merch or whatever and CDs? And you remember what that was like. When you're trying to just weigh everything. So those were kind of flying by the seat of our pants a little bit then.
Of course. But go ahead.
No. Well, then we got to a point where it was like time to make a new record. And then it was like, so do we get an advance? Well,
this was a major label, right? The next one was a major label, right?
It ended up being that, but we had a lot of different ways we could go, and we ended up settling with what was well, not that many. I wish we had more options.
Yeah.
So when Big Choice came, it was time to do a deal for the next record, which was Big Choice. Fat offered us a deal.
Yeah.
And And now I forget at what point we'd brought in actual manager. I think we had our friend Jim, who had like done those first few songs for us on Spec.
Okay.
He was working with this artist that had a manager that was looking for more clients, and he's like, I think Face to Face would be perfect for this guy. So he put us together and we met, and we're like, oh, we don't have anything else going. Yeah, let's get a manager.
Mm-hmm.
And so he kind of went and started shopping labels for us, and he brought this label. You might remember something about this. Was the band where was the band Quicksand from? Were they East
from
Coast?
New York, yeah.
They were
Walter,
East Coast,
yeah,
right? Yeah,
Biscuit,
Walter.
yeah.
Okay, so we met with Medicine Records.
Okay.
And I think they had something to do with Quicksand in the beginning.
Yeah, because then they went to Atlantic after that.
Yeah. So
Okay.
some dude from Medicine came out and met with us in Victorville, California.
Okay.
And he was just like, oh yeah, Quicksand and Walter this and Walter that and blah, blah, blah. And he was interested in doing something with us, but their offer wasn't very good. And we met with a couple other of those like labels that weren't a major, but they were a mid-level who had a deal with a major.
Yeah.
And then they had
Subsidiary,
the
they called
distribution.
them maybe, or
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Which, man, dude, they don't exist anymore, so I don't really have to warn any new bands about going to one of those.
Man.
But those were like one of the worst places you could be as a band, because they didn't have any of the teeth of a major.
Yeah, they didn't. Yeah.
But they
an
made
imprint. They called it
but they
imprints,
made you
maybe?
all the promises, you know.
Yeah, it was like an imprint. Maybe they called it.
Yeah, exactly.
You seem like a person that no matter even if you had a manager or not, that you love to not to be controlled, but this is your baby and your passion. So like you said, you booked all your original shows, so you know what it's like to actually book a show, go out there and talk to different promoters. So was it hard for you to let go and let somebody take over as a manager, or you leave, you just focus on music?
Both. It was actually both.
And
of
have
those
you
things.
ever let go of that? Because
No.
it's hard. It's hard. We've been through a lot of managers as well. I'm just saying it's hard to give up everything because you know you can get things done better yourself if you just do it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So giving those reins to somebody else taking a percentage, it's like you really got to work for that shit.
Yeah, and I it's something I started saying over the years to other people in bands or even to like younger people in bands that want advice or whatever. I tell them there's no one in the world who will ever care about your band more than you will.
So true.
No one.
Dude.
And you think there might be at periods of your career. You'll talk to some people that have a great speech and seem like they're just as invested in it as you, but there really will never be anyone that cares about it as much as you do at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So you have to keep that in mind. And I have been willing to give up control because I can't do everything, obviously. And you know, there's other people that we you know, they're far better connected than I am, and have better relationships and all that kind of good stuff. So it's short-sighted to think that you should do everything.
Well, was it hard to like, because Fat Mike was your friend, to like make that move to go and leave? It
was. We became, you know, friendly enough, and of course, when you tour with the band, and especially when you're young, when we did that tour with NoFX through Canada, that was awesome.
Yeah,
we love those guys.
Yeah, and
it's been a long time since then, and we haven't stayed like in touch. Like we haven't been on tour with them ever again. I don't think since then, but it still remains as one of those really great nostalgic memories I have. Mm-hmm. You know, it had a real big impact on me.
And that's cool. They only have to do one record on label, then go somewhere else. That's great.
Well, we wanted to go to FAT. It actually caused a lot of strife within the band.
Okay.
Matt wanted us to go to FAT, and
Okay.
he didn't even want to hear about any other record label. But I, at the time, was still working in construction, and I was married. And so I had a little bit of a different situation.
100%.
And I was like, well, if I'm going to stop working to do this, there has to be some financial contingency. Like, I don't expect that I'm going to, have it made for the rest of my life, but I have to be able to go, okay, I'm going to get X amount of dollars. It'll cover me for this many months. And then I know I can go give this a shot.
Yeah. You have different responsibilities at that time.
Yeah. And the numbers that Fat was able to do at the time, they were a small label.
Yeah.
They were kind of up and coming.
Yeah.
I know that might be hard for some people to imagine now at this point, but we were talking like 94,
Totally. It was before punk broke.
It really was. It really was. So, so I think they made the best offer they could. But it just wasn't going to work for us if we wanted to try and next level the band. So,
and the big choice comes from that, making a big choice. Is that kind of like,
it was kind of a tongue in cheek thing, but
Okay.
yeah. Chad, who had joined the band as our guitar player for that album, that's part of his kind of wacky sense of humor. He would make that joke about us making a big choice, and then we're like, well, what if we put the claw machine? And it just kind of came out of that. But so we ended up going with a bad label that was a subsidiary of a major.
Yeah.
Which you should never do, ever. They were called Victory Music, and they were a subsidiary of... What were they a subsidiary of?
Epic.
A&M. A&M Records.
A&M, wow.
So we learned a lot through that process.
I'm sure, man.
There were good people at the label, and there were people that had their heads up their ass. I don't think there was anyone there who was inherently evil or looking to do bad or looking to rip anyone off or any opportunists.
Yeah.
But there were just people there that were competent and people that were incompetent.
Of course. Like anywhere.
And we got some good advice while we were there. There was a person in particular in A&R that took us under her wing and said, your manager shouldn't be on tour with you when you're getting ready to put out a record. You should be doing ABC if you want your band to be more successful. And I took that advice, and we used it to kind of break away from a lot of the situations we'd inadvertently got ourselves into at that point. So that was a big help.
Yeah.
And so that was a weird time because they wanted to hire a producer. We'd never really worked with a producer before. And this was after the Offspring Smash came out and had done and was crushing it. And Green Day's
all that.
Dookie had come out and was doing really well too.
That's like 94, 95. Yeah.
Yeah. So we did the record with Tom Wilson, who was the Offspring's producer on Smash.
Perfect. Okay. Gotcha.
And our A&R guy at the time was like, it's a no brainer. We'll pay this guy X amount of dollars. He'll make your record. It's going to be another hit. Well, it wasn't that easy because we had songs, and I thought the songs were pretty good.
Yep.
But compared to what I know now about making records and what we were doing then, we were fumbling in the dark. Like, we had no idea what we were doing. We were just doing whatever we knew how to do.
Yeah.
And dude, do you remember what the 90s were like to be in a punk rock band? I mean, it was the era of kill rock star. It was anti rock star,
anti major labels, you're anti everything.
Everything was about your presupposed ethics as a musician. And there was a lot of moral judgments put 100%. On people about what they did or didn't do.
And message boards just started back then too. I hated when message boards began. That was a big thing during the same time where punk was blowing up. Everybody had an opinion, sellout, just everything.
So I'd like to say that we were divorced of that.
Okay.
Because I wanted to be an independent thinker.
Love that.
And I was like, well, you know what? I know people say major labels are bad, but why? Like, I need to experience this for I don't know that they're bad. I haven't been, it took
Clash was on one.
It took me being hard-headed enough to go through the experience to go, okay, now I get it. Yeah, now I'm with these guys. But at the time, that major label was the only one that was offering the budget and the tour support and the things that I needed to go, well, now I can turn this into a reality. And I don't necessarily think we were selling our soul. They didn't really come in and do anything with us They did not fuck with us creatively in one bit. No one came in and said, write your song this way, write it that way.
Yeah.
But I guess what I'm trying to get around to is because of that ethic and that attitude that was so pervasive in the 90s, I think because we signed to a major, we felt like we had to overcompensate for it. So when the A&R guy said, hey, Tom Wilson would like to take a pre-production meeting with you so we could talk about your songs and then we could talk about how to make the record and all that kind of stuff. I was like, fuck that, dude. No one's telling me how to write my songs. I know what I'm doing. We're a punk rock band. We do it our way. It was one of the stupidest things I could have ever done. You know what I mean? Because all I did was prevent us from having any opportunity to potentially make the record better. It's not like we would have taken the meeting and we would have had to just do whatever anyone said.
No.
But why not?
You had this.
Now in hindsight, I'm like, why not take the meeting? there might have been 30 bad ideas and one good one, but the one good one might have made that one song way better.
Yeah.
Or it could have made the album sound better, or the production or whatever.
Yeah.
So that overcompensation of the sellout thing and all that, we just went, you know what? We're on tour. We don't have time for pre-production, and we wouldn't let him tell us how to make our songs anyway. So we kind of looked at working with a producer as a threat.
Wow.
Because we wanted to work with people that we knew. You know, buddies of ours or whatever.
Yeah.
So we went in and did the record at a place called Track Record in Studio City, and I think it's somewhere in that part of town. And it was cool. You know, there were like gold records hanging on the wall of all these big bands and stuff. We thought, oh wow, this is a really pro studio. I think Quiet Riot was in Studio B while we were in the other one. Yeah, which we thought was hilarious. Like, we didn't really respect them or anything. We thought it was funny that they were there. And you know, we were a little bit cocky, trying to stick to whatever our ethic was, and we didn't really let Tom have any input on the record at all. And I think he knew that going in, so he kind of just went, cool, man, I'm getting a paycheck. I'll do what I need to do, and we'll get it over with, and then I'll go on tour with The Offspring, because he was also mixing The Offspring live in addition to doing their thing. And
he was chilling. Smash was blowing up. He's cool.
Yeah. So what he's like looking at his watch going, I'm gonna make this record for 2 weeks, and then I'm gonna go jump on tour with The Offspring. And in the meantime, we're thinking everything's about us. Yeah. And it was just so naive and short-sighted. Yeah. When I look back on it now, you know, it's easy to judge these things in hindsight.
No, totally.
So we went in and made the record, and I think Tom. I can't really credit. Tom actually ended up passing away. Oh wow! I don't know how long ago he got cancer, and so yeah, I wouldn't criticize him though, even if he was still around. Yeah, because I realize how we acted through that period. Yeah, but of course I wouldn't want to say anything bad about Tom. You know, I think he did the best he could with what we were able to give him, because we didn't give much. That being said, you know, it was definitely a record that was made on cruise control. The mics put on the toms to record the album were lav mics that you would use at a live show. Wow. And everything was just sort of done on the fly and without much thought. I got sick partway through the record, and my voice sounded terrible. I took a day off, and everyone got really pissed, and they're like, the record's still going to get made, so now you just have one day fewer to make it.
2 vocals, whatever.
And I was just like, dude,
like $3,000.
My voice sounds crazy right now. Like, I can't make the record. So I still listen back to the record, and I go, yeah, I sound hoarse for the record because I had a sore throat. But it is what it is, and part of the reason that it is what it is by our own design. And I'm probably far more critical. I know there's people out there that love the record and love the song, so I'm not knocking it, but I think the potential of the record could have been better had we been better human beings at the time.
I have a similar experience as you, is that we left Epitaph to go to MCA to try out a major label as well. I did the completely opposite, and don't regret this album called Go, because people love it. But we hired Matt Wallace to produce it. It was at Rumbo Studios. Guns N' Roses were in the room next to us.
Oh, dude, that's all good stuff. Yeah.
So it was exciting. And then I didn't write one lyric on the record. I kind of checked out. I was moving here from California. My wife, who was staying at the Oakwoods. I kind of let my brother Todd and Rusty take the reins on this record. I love the songs, but they're overproduced to me. I love you, Matt Wallace. We chose him because he did Replacements and Faith No More, but it's over poppy. And so I did the totally opposite and just let them take the reins, because I was really nervous and not excited about leaving Epitaph. And Brett's like, you can leave, you can come back whenever you want. He was so cool about it. And we went and did this record, but it was kind of the opposite thing. But yeah, it was like going to MCA Records, like Blink was on there, New Found Glory, everything was blowing up and all that. Yeah. Just like taking that chance. People called us sellouts, blah, blah, blah. And we didn't overcompensate as well. But, you know, obviously I don't know, man. It just... I guess we did like, hey, like these, you know, the shirts we wore on the record, and still tour with our friends' hardcore bands. We're the same people. We're just trying something different, you know?
Sure.
We were saying, weren't like selling our integrity, or, I don't know, I was just trying something.
There's no instruction book that comes along with doing this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? All you can do is react. It's like most of what life is.
Yeah.
You can only just really react in the moment that you're living at the time you're living it.
Yeah.
So, and when you're young, you don't have this, vast pool of experiences to draw from that would inform your wisdom in these situations.
Yeah, it's true. Right? It's so true.
And intimidation comes into it. All kinds of different things affect your motivation and viewpoint. So
yeah,
you shouldn't regret it.
I don't regret it. It was just something it was part of our career. Something we tried. It didn't work out. For me, it was like I saw 7 Seconds. He went to Restless Records. I love 7 Seconds, and like they got more melodic, and like we love melodic music as well. And like I got inspired by seeing my friends signing to majors and stuff, like taking chances. Quicksand, Orange 9mm, Civ.
Yeah,
was on Atlantic.
Yeah,
a bunch of my friends were trying different things, and so we tried, and it just didn't work for us. But people to this day, people love that record, and those songs stand out with our older songs. But production wise, it was just over the top. So. It's 20 years old next year, and I kind of want to re-record the whole thing and make it just sound like us and see what that would come out like.
That'd be kind of fun. You should do it.
Yeah, just for 20 years, just have like maybe Chad Gilbert do it because he did our past records, and just keep it raw,
20th anniversary alternate recordings.
Yeah, but it's like just the money we spent, and the videos and all the stuff we think back, and like we're still in debt to MCA Records. Like 20 years later, we get these little royalty things. It's like a joke.
Yeah.
We still owe $400,000 or something. It's just
that was part
fantasy.
Of that was the major label game, right?
Yeah.
What they did was they wanted to keep you unrecouped as long as they could.
Dude,
so
forever.
Not only would they charge you for things that were legitimate charges, but they charge you for everything. They would make up stuff.
Mm-hmm.
A&R guys would go out and run up the tab and put it on your record bill while they're like giving away like passes to resorts and golf courses and stuff to radio station people.
Yeah.
And then that all gets charged back to your account. So I remember there were bands at the time in the 90s going, oh, cool, we have like 3 hit songs and we've sold platinum records, but somehow we're still unrecouped on this major. Like, how does that work?
It's scary, man.
So I think the whole, digitalization of music and online music and streaming and everything has finally leveled the playing field now.
Yeah.
And a lot of people resisted it because a lot of people were making a lot of money and getting rich and doing well with it. But it's a little bit more democratic now, I think. The music that people have access to that they like gets played, and the stuff that doesn't resonate with people doesn't. And so it's a little more egalitarian, I think, because you don't have all these. I mean, there's still some gatekeepers, but it's not the way that it used to be, where you weren't going to get anywhere if you didn't go through one of the gatekeepers into music.
It's so true.
Now you can make a record in your bedroom and upload it through CD Baby or TuneCore or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's on Spotify in a week. And then it's up to you to promote it and let people know that it's out there.
And for the rappers, SoundCloud, a lot of rappers blew up on SoundCloud first.
Right. Yeah. All those different things. So, dude, I don't want to drag through. I mean, I'm at like year 4 or 5 and
dude,
it's like 30 years of the band. So
I want to talk about Disconnected though.
Yeah. I want to quit like anthologizing the band.
Okay, good. Okay.
Sorry, I didn't realize. Like, I started this path, and I'm like, wait, this is going to take like a day.
Dude,
so just ask me questions.
I want to talk about Disconnected. Hey guys, that was just part 1 of the Trever Keith from Face to Face podcast. It's 2.5 hours, so I decided to cut it right in half for you guys, and we'll hear part 2 next week. It's an incredible conversation. I learned so much about Trever during this podcast, and appreciate him so much more as a human, as a musician, as a father, as a husband. So I hope you guys enjoy part 2 next week.